Hello and welcome to my channel, and today we are filming my mid-year book freakout tag. That was a lot of words, and if you have no idea what I am talking about, this is basically a book tag where a lot of booktubers come and discuss the books that they are reading with specific questions attached. So pretty much just wrapping up the first half of my reading year and discussing the books that I've read in more of an organized fashion. I have 13 questions here, and I got my questions from Lexi at Alexandra Roslin. I have seen tags with other questions, so I'm sure there are more questions I could have added to this, but I wanted to stick to the 13 at least that she uses, because not every booktuber copy and pastes the questions into their description box. So yeah, I just ended up going with those questions. It's totally fine, but if you have any more questions for me, I will happily answer them in the comments below. My reading year has been pretty much all over the place. I've been doing great quantity-wise. I almost said quality-wise. I've been doing great quantity-wise, not so much quantity-wise. I've only had one 5-star novel. I've had a couple of 5 stars, but those have just been manga volumes, which, like, obviously there's nothing wrong with getting a 5-star manga, but novel wise we haven't been doing the best. I've read 110 books so far this year, about 75% of those being manga in general. I've been on my manga journey in 2024, which is great. It does also kind of stink because I'm trying to read more from my physical TBR, and I don't own a lot of manga series in full. So that's just kind of been the downside. The bright side is I'm using my library a lot more, so great for me. The bad news being, I don't know if there's a lot of diversity in my answers, mainly because, like I said, I haven't read a ton of physical books that aren't like manga or graphic novels, so that's a little tough. That's the one bad thing about my manga challenge, kind of putting my owned books on the back burner, which is something that I didn't really want to happen. All right, we're about 4 minutes into the raw footage, so let's just jump right into it and start with question number 1, which is the best book you have read in 2024. Like I said, I have given one novel a 5-star, and that is The Wishing Game by Meg Shaffer. Something like that. This, oh my gosh, this is like a hug of a book. I know not everybody thinks it is. I know this is kind of controversial. Not everybody loves this book. Actually, most people, when I've read the comments, didn't really like it, so maybe this is an unpopular opinion from me. But we follow Lucy, who is a teaching assistant and a part-time writer. She does want to write full-time. She's very inspired by this children's series that she reads with one of her students, who she does want to adopt. This is where most people have an issue with this book, because of the relationship between Lucy and her student, because her student Christopher does not have parents. His parents passed away a few years ago, and he has formed a bond with Lucy. And a lot of people don't like that. They think that it's weird, but that relationship is one of the main things that I love about this book, and I loved the magic and everything. But anyway, back to before I start talking about that. But they have formed a bond over this children's series. And every day that passes by, it looks like Lucy is getting farther and farther away from being able to adopt Christopher, until the author of this children's series says that he is publishing one final book. And he is inviting a select few people onto his island to try and win that one copy to do with what they wish, whether it be sell, keep, whatever it is they wish to do. And Lucy is invited to join. This is very, like I said, the main thing that I love about this is the relationship between Lucy and Christopher. and the relationships in general, Lucy's relationship with the author and her relationships with the other contestants on the island, and her romantic interest that she meets on the island as well. I just adored this so much. There's so much magic in it. It is very much magical realism, which I usually don't like. I don't know, it's something about it. I've never found a book that I vibed with, and I did with this. This is like a hug in a book. I loved and adored it very, very much, and it has solidified its spot as my number one of the year, unless something else comes along. Question number 2 is the best sequel of 2024. So when I am asked about sequels, I count like any book in the series that isn't number 1, and this is the final book in the series that I recently just read and talked about in a vlog that definitely should be up before this video, and that is the Sisters Grimm Council of Mirrors. This is the last book in the series, and while I do think there are some things that could have been changed, I do think that this is probably the best ending in any series that I have read in recent date, especially middle grade. I feel like a lot of middle grades leave the endings open to interpretation, and we don't really get a lot of answers, and this did not do that. We got a good ending for all of our characters, and I'm very happy and sad as well. This series has been with me since the beginning of this channel. I've talked about this in countless videos, so it's really sad to see the series end and to not be able to visit any of my favorite characters on new adventures. I can obviously go through and reread the whole series, which I might do someday, but it was a very bittersweet ending. Still, I'm very glad that I finished the series, and I do think it was the best sequel that I've read so far this year. The next is a 2024 release that you want to read but have not yet. I don't own a lot of 2024 releases that I know of. I'm pretty sure the one I'm about to talk about might be the only one I own for now, or at least that I haven't read yet. But the one I want to talk about is The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder. This is one that I saw on Meg's channel from Meg with Books, and she didn't like it. She was very excited to read this book. She thought that this book sounded right up her alley. And when she read it, she thought it was really boring. I'm intrigued. I think this could go either way. That's why I was very hesitant to put it on this list to begin with. But still, I'm intrigued by it. I was intrigued enough by it to pick it up. And I don't always agree with everything that Meg says, which is one of my favorite parts about BookTube in general, is even though a booktuber you like might not like the book, it's very possible that you yourself could. So I try not to take people's reviews too far into consideration. But off topic. I don't know much about this other than the title, which is obviously what intrigues me about it. Yeah, I'm really excited and nervous. We'll see how this goes. I'm hoping to put it on a TBR really, really soon. But slight spoiler, I have no say in my TBRs for the next 2 months. So I don't know when or if I will actually get to this, but I would like to this year. The fourth question is your most anticipated book for the second half of the year. And I just found out that the author of The Wishing Game is writing a second book, not a sequel to The Wishing Game, but a second book that I'm obviously very excited about. Don't know what it's about, don't care. She wrote my favorite book of the year so far, so I will read her second book. I hope I'll love it just as much, because if I can find a new auto-buy author, that is always a win for me. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment. I want to stretch. This is not a bad book. This is not a bad series. This is not bad in any way other than if you compare it to its success. Eden Zero, this is probably my biggest disappointment of the year because I love Fairy Tail so much. If you know what Fairy Tail is, it is by far, to date, one of my favorite anime/manga series. I love it with my whole heart. It is something that Benson and I are able to bond over pretty much since the beginning of our relationship, and we are just finishing the series. We have a date tomorrow to finish the last 15 episodes of the anime. So it's a very bittersweet feeling. Either way, it is one of my favorite pieces of media. So I was really excited going into Eden Zero for my manga series for May. And I was so disappointed. It is very much a copy and paste situation where the author took the forms of the characters from Fairy Tail and gave them pretty much the same personalities and just gave them different names. The plot isn't necessarily the same. I think that's one of the things that it does very well, is the plot isn't copy and pasted, thankfully. But the characters, and there are even names of like guild names that were brought back into the series, and the world building. One thing I love about Fairy Tail is the world building and the characters, and there is none in Eden Zero, and that is beyond disappointing and so upsetting. And maybe I would like it more if I didn't read Fairy Tail or watch Fairy Tail first. Maybe I wouldn't care as much, but I did, and I do. I still would recommend that you read Fairy Tail first or watch Fairy Tail first. Like, it's beyond words how much better it is. And I know you could say, like, try not to compare the two. It is impossible when the author seems to copy and paste pretty much everything. And I could excuse it as, oh, maybe he's just trying to do, like, oh, it's a fairy tale in space, it's an alternate dimension, like, it's meant to be similar. But then I read the afterwards for one of the books, and the author pretty much says he's winging everything. He pretty much says he doesn't know the direction this is going to go, and he's taking all new ideas. And I'm like, they're not new ideas, because you used the exact same things in Fairy Tail. So it's very contradictory, and it makes me really sad that this series had to be my biggest disappointment so far. Biggest surprise is question number 6, and I think this one is going to another manga series, which it's a big surprise because I had never heard of this before. I needed a manga series for B, which I was originally going to go with Black Butler for, but I had no access to my library or my physical library for, I think, like 2 months, which was literally the worst experience ever. We had really bad rain and snow, and our poor library ended up getting flooded, so we had no access to our entire library. And I was kind of panicking because I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna read. I don't want to have to buy the entire series of Black Butler because we were trying to save money, and Benson was like, oh, I can buy them for you, and I really didn't want them to have to do that. So I thought I was going to have to stop my entire challenge really early on. Thankfully, I was scrolling on Crunchyroll and found this anime called By the Grace of Gods, and I decided to see if it had a manga for it, and it does. It had 9 volumes at the 9 volumes at the time that I found it. It now has 10, and I read the entire thing in February, and I enjoyed it very much. I say this is a surprise because I had never heard of it. I never planned on reading it whatsoever, and I'm very glad that I did. This is a manga series about a man who dies in his sleep, and because of the way he died, the gods take pity on him and decide to resurrect him as a little boy in a magical land. and he spends his days at the start pretty much alone raising slimes, and to follow his adventures from there. I very much enjoy this series, and I will continue to read it up until there are no more, up until they're no longer being written. And I did start the anime. Might end up making Benson watch it with me at some point, but I very much enjoy this series. My one issue with it, and I'll talk about this again and again, is the fact that everything's a little too easy for our main character. Really, like, if he gets into a sticky situation, you know he's gonna get right out of it because he's in favor of the gods. But that's pretty much it. I still love it. I love the characters. I love our main character. I love the world. I love our slimes, and it's very interesting. New favorite author. This one's tough because I don't really read a lot of returning authors unless like it's part of a series. So for this one, I'm going to talk about an author that I have read from before, but I think she's solidified herself as an auto-buy author. I think. Don't quote me on that. But that is Alexandra Bellafleur. I literally just finished the third book in the Written in the Stars series 3 days ago. So I think if she keeps writing the way she is, and and the type of stories that she does, I think she has solidified herself as a favorite author, and I'm very intrigued to see what she writes next now that this trilogy is over. Number 7 is probably the hardest one for me, and that is Newest Fictional Crush. I don't typically have fictional crushes. I don't know, I just don't really find a lot of characters that I connect to in that way that make me think, oh, like, hey, I'd date you. Right now, my longest standing fictional crush has been Red Morgan from the Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Brendan from the Count Your Lucky Star series. If I had to choose one from this year, it might be Hugo from The Wishing Game. And number 9 is new favorite character, probably Lucy from The Wishing Game, if I'm gonna be honest. I really can't think of any other. Maybe Koro Sensei from Assassination Classroom, which is another manga series that I read this year that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But that's pretty much it. I haven't had a lot of characters that I've loved that much. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, which is where I'm gonna bring up Assassination Classroom. I read all 21 volumes of Assassination Classroom in a month and a half. It would have been 1 month, but I just didn't. I was trying to prioritize more of my my owned books. So I read the whole series in a month and a half, and I loved it. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, so maybe I could have talked about this for biggest surprise, but I loved this series so much. It is about a group of kids who are pretty much the underdogs. They've been the underdogs their entire life. They've been sent to this classroom where nobody expects anything from them. They think they're going to be losers their entire life, and they're not going to amount to anything. And then this thing comes out of the sky, after he destroys the moon, and basically says, I'm going to do the exact same thing to Earth in a select amount of months unless you can find a way to kill me. And for some reason, he also wants to become a teacher. We don't know why, we don't know how, but he wants to be a teacher. So the government decides that it would be a great idea to have these kids not only learn from him, but learn how to kill him. So it's the whole series following these kids trying to learn how to kill their teacher, while also simultaneously actually learning how to be better people. And I loved it. I loved it very, very much. I still love it. I'm making Benson watch the anime with me, as you do when you love something and you want to force all your people to watch it and consume it in any way. But that last volume made me sob. I was sitting in the library. Benson and Connor were streaming at home, and I was just trying not to sob. Full tears in the library, surrounded by people. Didn't work out very well, but also happy at the same time. It was very, like the Sisters Grimm, was a very bittersweet type of situation. Number 11, a book that made you happy. I have a lot of books that made me happy this year, but the one I want to talk about is actually a picture book. It's one that I would not have picked out if it wasn't for the Buzzword-a-thon last month. The word was every, and I have no book on my shelf that starts with every. I did grab a couple from the library, but I didn't have enough time to actively read it. So instead, I downloaded a short little picture book called Every Little Kindness. Now, this is a wordless picture book. It has no context, no dialogue, nothing. You just look at the pictures, and it's about how one simple act of kindness can change not only that one person's life, but others' lives, and yours as well. So it's a very cute picture book with an amazing message, and I highly recommend it, if you're an adult or a child. 12 is the most beautiful book you've acquired this year, and this is a no-brainer. The Art of Prophecy. This is the most gorgeous book that I have gotten this year. I've yet to read it, but it is definitely one of the most beautiful books on my shelf. I know there are collector's editions for this one somewhere, and I'm sure they're even more beautiful, but honestly, the best $30 I have ever spent. I love this cover with my whole heart. I also love the covers for the last Namsara series, like the Ascari series, I love it. And I did, like, those didn't come out this year. Neither did The Art of Prophecy, but I did purchase them this year. I love how shiny and pretty they are. And lastly, question number 13. What books do you need to read before the end of the year? And the answer to that question is all of them. I have so many books that I need to read, that I need to get off of my TBR. More specifically, if I'm going to be very honest, are the books that are on my Goodreads currently reading shelf. If you don't know, I keep all of the books that I start throughout the year on my currently reading, even if I don't finish them within the time frame that I'm supposed to, as a way to help me visualize the books that I actually need to prioritize. I did it last year, and the goal was to, get them off of my currently reading before the end of the year. Of course, that didn't turn out exactly the way it should have. Right now, I only have 16, which, saying it out loud sounds like a lot, but last year was way, way more than that throughout the year. So that means that I am actively continuing in the books that I'm supposed to be reading, more so than last year. To name a couple that I really should, that are on my currently reading, that I really need to continue and finish before the end of the year: People We Meet on Vacation, Wuthering Heights, Midnight in the Everwood, which is a Nutcracker retelling that I really need to finish, Story of Silence, my Beauty and the Beast collection, and the Book of Cthulhu, which Benson and I started together. So those are a couple of them that I really, really need to read. But I think, as a whole, I just need to finish my entire TBR, which is way too many books long. So that is my mid-year freakout tag. Overall, I'm really happy with my reading for the year. I am a little sad that most of my reading is just manga volumes. I also shouldn't be, because manga is reading too. And while I do want to prioritize the books that I own, I am glad that I'm expanding my reading and finding some new series that I am very much enjoying and adoring. that was my mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know the answers to any of these questions down in the comments below, for you, of course. Let me know if there are any books that I should be on the lookout for, or any books that you want to dissuade me from reading that'll probably make me want to read them a little bit more. And I think I'll see y'all in the next video. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more from me, as well as Benson, who's a frequent member on this channel. I will leave all of their links down in the description box below, as well as links to my social media if you want to get any more updates from me. But until then, goodbye.